God rest ye merry gentlemen, let none of you dismay, for Christ our Lord and Savior was born on Christmas Day. We were talking about our favorite Christmas songs, and there's this one. It's a collaboration between Sarah McLachlan and the Bare Naked Ladies, and I put that down as my list of collaborations that seem like they won't work on paper, but if that one ever does, I I think it's like her. Sarah McLachlan has a very distinctive voice, and paired with the kind of quirky, the kind of quirky sound of the Bare Naked Ladies, it just really works for some reason. If you've never heard that collaboration of God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, then you absolutely should. It's one of my favorite Christmas songs. So if you haven't guessed yet, it is what? 2 weeks until Christmas, I think, at this point I'm recording. And it's as warm as hell here. It feels like April. And in honor of the season, I am drinking a mint green tea, which I will show you right now. Cheers. Out of my Olaf icebreaker mug. Oh, it's very lovely. And we are doing the one of the X-Files Christmas specials. There was a tweet, I think it was put out by the Sex Files podcast, which is one of the best podcasts out there, if not the best. And it is about how the X-Files has 2 Christmas specials, and they are absolutely the most traumatic things you'll ever watch in the series. Don't know why that is. But one of them, of course, is How the Ghost Stole Christmas, and I think that's one of the shittiest episodes of the X-Files ever made. And the other one is A Christmas Carol, and it's one of the saddest episodes of the X-Files ever made. So with the X-Files Christmas specials, you're not going to win, I don't think. This episode is written by Vince Gilligan, Frank Spotnitz, and John Sheben. So they just got all the big, strong men on this episode. But that doesn't save this episode's shitty storyline. Oh, fuck. You know what? Let's dive right into it. I remember watching this episode and when I was 13 years old, and getting so excited. I was, spoilers for this episode. Stop the video now if you've never watched it, because there's some pretty big spoilers in this review. I got really excited. This is where the spoilers start, by the way. I was like, oh boy, Melissa Scully returned. She didn't really die. Melissa Scully being my second favorite character on the show. And spoiler, she does not return, at least to life. And then at the end of the episode, I was like, Scully's got a daughter. This is fantastic. She's finally going to get to have a child. And then it's like, it really is like you get everything you want on Christmas Day, and then some jerk ass like rips it all away from you. That's exactly what this episode feels like. It feels like opening presents on Christmas morning when you're a child, and some jerkwad just taking them all away from you and saying like, nope, these aren't for you. We were just kidding. LOL. That's exactly what this episode feels like. So, yeah, pretty depressing stuff. So the episode begins with the nativity. You see this little nativity, and you see Scully's sister-in-law, Tara, putting the nativity together, and then she's rubbing her pregnant belly. This episode has callbacks to the nativity, and of course to A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And I think this episode is really pleased with its references to those 2 things, but it's more subtle references to other pieces of media, including particular episode of The X-Files that's far more clever, that I think works better for this episode. The ones that reference A Christmas Carol and the Nativity is like very heavy-handed. But the ones that are more subtle are better, which is kind of how the X-Files works. But it's kind of like they're saying, oh, look, the Nativity, look, A Christmas Carol. And we're like, yeah, I know, we see it. That's literally the name of the episode, too. Anyway, Tara, you hear someone at the door, and it's Scully and Ma Scully, Maggie, with Scully's brother, Bill. And we're going to talk about Bill at length in a bit. So, Tara welcomes them. You see Scully's autism showing when she looks at Tara. And the first thing everyone is telling Tara, like, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. Ah, baby. And the first thing Scully says when she looks at Tara is, oh my God, you're huge. And I'm like, Scully not finding the right words in a social situation. I felt that. My autistic ass felt that. So then they look around Bill's house, which is naval base housing, because he's a Navy captain, I believe. And he's in the Navy, like his dear old pop. R.I.P. Pop Scully. We'll talk about you too. So they're looking around, and Scully's like, oh my God, this is just like the base housing we stayed at when we were kids. And Tara, I think Tara's just nervous about being around her mother-in-law and sister-in-law, because you kind of get that vibe that she hasn't spent much time with them. But damn, is she ever saying the wrong stuff in this episode. I don't think she means it. She still kind of says shitty stuff, but I don't think it's like mean-spirited stuff. I think she's a good woman, and it would be great if we saw her and Scully like form a bond of friendship. But this show is absolutely allergic to women forming bonds of friendship if it's not centered around a man. So fuck me. There goes the dump truck. So Tara's like, oh, Mom, you'll be sleeping in like this room. And then she says, oh, and Dana, you'll be sleeping in you and Melissa's room. And I'm like, Tara, sweetie, please don't say that. Like, please don't say that. Don't make that correlation, baby. Please don't. Anyway, she does. And then Scully's mom is like looking around at the Christmas tree, and she says, oh, I'm just thinking about your dad. And that's a great callback to Beyond the Sea, which begins at Christmas, even though it's not a Christmas episode of the X-Files, and where Bill Scully Sr., Scully's father, is like looking at her Christmas tree and being pretty judgmental about it, to be honest. This episode has fantastic callbacks to Beyond the Sea, which is in my top 10 favorite episodes. And it has fantastic references to another piece of media that also inspired Beyond the Sea, and we'll get to that in a minute. Ooh, I love that very much. So, and then, of course, Maggie says, I'm just thinking about your sister, Melissa. One thing this episode does that I think it does not intentionally do, I would be surprised if it was intentional considering how heavy-handed these writers on the X-Files are, is how this episode kind of shows how the holidays isn't all candy canes and cocoa and presents. It's a lot of people dealing with depression and trauma that they associate with the holidays, and how the holidays is not always a fun time for people. It's a time of grief and depression for a lot of people, and how our capitalistic society, positive, what is it called? Toxic positivity society, like tries to force that cheerfulness on people, which I think is pretty shitty. This episode is a pretty good metaphor for that. I'll give it that. I don't think this was done intentionally, but it's pretty awesome. I always feel it. I'm one of those people, I've always struggled with that, like people forcing the holiday season on you, forcing that festiveness on you. And I'm like, yeah, let people deal with it the way they need to deal with it. That's what I believe, which is what I believe with most things. So anyway, Scully, the phone rings. No one's there to answer it. And Scully's like, oh my God, Bill, please answer this phone. I am trying to be on a vacation. We all know what happens when Scully goes on vacations. Spooky shit follows her. And she's like, I just want to have a day off. I don't want to work. So, of course, she answers the phone. And it's Melissa. This was the point when I was 13 and I was watching it. And I was like, oh, Melissa's coming back. Oh my God. I should have known. I was a baby and I didn't understand that these writers were pieces of shit as far as women characters go. So, miss those days. I was so naive. So, gotta switch hands now. So, she answers the phone. It's Melissa. She's telling Scully, she's like, go to her, Dana. You know, she needs you. Scully traces the call to this house in San Diego. I am so sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry. She traces this call to this house in San Diego. You get this pretty hilarious scene of Bill Jr. driving Scully around in his it's not an SUV. I don't know what it is. Anyway, he's like driving her around. And it's just this really hilarious scene. You kind of get the feeling that Bill was like driving his sisters around when he got his driver's license on their little respective adventures. Let's talk about Bill Jr. Bill Jr. is probably one of the most hated characters in the X-Files. And I think the reason for that is because he's mean to Mulder. I think that's really the biggest reason people hate him, is because he's mean to Spooky Boy. Like Spooky Boy doesn't deserve this. I like Bill. And I know he can be pig-headed. And at times he can be a piece of shit. But the sibling bond between him and Scully is really good. You get moments where you kind of forget these are two actors, Gillian Anderson and Pat Skipper, and you're just like, what's the YouTube video? You're like, siblings. They have that sibling bond. And he definitely is always trying to big brother Scully. And I think that's something the actor put in and Gillian put in. I don't think the writers put that as a priority, but you feel that. You feel that sibling bond between them in this episode. And in every time Bill Scully's on the screen, you feel that these are siblings. You feel like this is actually a brother and a sister. This isn't an actor and an actress. That's how I feel. Now my cat's drinking my tea. Why do you always drink my beverages, you silly thing? At least it's not alcoholic this time. So, they go to this house and we meet the sexy San Diego detective. Love this guy. I ship him and Scully. Every time Scully goes off on a spooky adventure by herself without Mulder, I ship her and whatever law enforcement officer she meets. In Chinga, it was Jack. In this episode, it's the sexy San Diego detective. This guy is fire, okay? I want him and Scully to make 1 million babies. You fuck Spooky Boy. Fuck Mulder. So, she meets him. This guy is immediately intrigued by her. He's like, whoa, this woman blows in on vacation and she's trying to solve this case. I am shooketh. So, this woman, Roberta Sim, apparently committed suicide. And as we'll learn, she didn't. She was murdered. And there's this little girl there. I'm sure she won't figure into the plot at any point. This little actress is so good. And spoilers, she looks a lot like a baby Scully would, I think. Scully tells Bill he's like, they're making jokes in there, the other officers are, that you got a call from a dead woman. And Scully's like, I think I did, but it's not this dead woman. It's our sister. And Bill Scully, man, I know he gets a lot of hate, but in this episode, like, he's grieving Melissa just like his sister Dana is. Like, and you feel that. Like, this is a great family story. The storyline's shitty, but as far as the Scully family interacting, it's great. Like, oh boy, I have thoughts on this episode storyline, and we'll get to that in a minute. So Scully goes back home, and she starts getting visions in her dreams. And this series, The X-Files, really said Scully is psychic, Scully is precognitive, Scully can communicate with the dead, Scully has children with these abilities. Scully's mom and sister also have psychic powers, and this show really looked at all of that potential, and they were like, let's focus on Mulder's shit. Like, literally the most boring thing in the world. And that's wasted potential. So Scully starts having these visions, and I will give the episode this: it doesn't just say like hitting us over the head with like the ghost of Christmas, the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future, but it does it in a subtle way, and I like that. So she starts having these dreams. Some of them are pretty good, and they're memories from her past. She has a dream where she's fighting with Bill. Baby Dana is so cute. She's wearing one of those frilly pinafore dresses that my mom forced me to wear when I was little. And I'm pretty sure Scully's mom had to wrestle her into a dress like an octopus. And Bill's like being a piece of shit. As older brothers will be. I had 2 older brothers, and they could be quite obnoxious. I'll say that. But I was quite obnoxious too. And he's little baby Dana has hid a rabbit, and he's trying to find it, and they're having this fight. Baby Dana gets out this Lassie metal lunchbox. I had one of those, but it was a Buck Rogers lunchbox. It was pretty awesome. I wish I still had it. And that's where she's hiding the rabbit. But you know what? I think about that scene. I hate the show Family Guy. It's a piece of shit show. But there is a really good scene where Peter's like talking to Meg, his daughter, and he's like, I got you a pony. And he's like, but I got it for you when you were 6. And he opens the closet and the pony's dead. There's just a skeleton in there. He's like, oh yeah, ponies need air and water. That's what I think of when I watch this scene, because you see the rabbit, and I mean maggots are covering it, and it's traumatic watching that when I'm 38. And I can only imagine what it was like for maybe 6-year-old baby Dana. And then we see this reference to The Shining, and this episode has a lot of references to The Shining. This is probably one of the best ones. And actually, strangely enough, the night before I rewatched this episode, I watched this vlog review about The Shining by Super Eyepatch Wolf. Awesome YouTuber. Not a sponsor, but seriously, his stuff is amazing. Please watch. And they're talking about how in The Shining, the characters, you will see their reactions before you see whatever is freaking them out. And there's the scene where Danny is in the game room, and he sees the 2 little dead girls, the 2 little twin girls who are holding hands. And you get his reaction before you see the little girls. This is a great callback to The Shining. You see baby Dana, and she looks around. You get her reaction. She's like, whoa. It's not fear. It's just absolute astonishment. Give all the Emmys to the child actors in this episode. They are so good. And then you see the little girl that Scully met at the house she went to where Roberta Sim committed suicide. this is Robertson's daughter, Emily. You see her like on the basement stairs, and baby Dana's just like, they have that eye contact, and it is freaky as fuck. Even the music sounds like The Shining, and it's good. That's some good shit. I'm like, good job, guys. Wish the episode had been this and not the shitty bang bang that this episode's going to be. The Scully gets up and, hey, your dead sister's calling you again, babe. And you get this just heartbreaking scene. I'll praise Jillian in every review I do about her acting, but she is like, she's crying, and she's like, why are you doing this? She thinks somebody is just torturing them with a cruel prank, when deep in her heart, she knows what it is. And on that subject, great scene where they're having dinner, and she goes to call Mulder, and you see him rushing in like the stocking cap, and like the show's like, oh, look, A Christmas Carol. And I'm like, yeah, we get it, guys. It's the name of the episode. And he answers, and I don't know why he wouldn't think this is Scully. Like, couldn't he trace the call to her house? That seems like a very Mulder thing to do. And he doesn't. That's OOC for Mulder. And Scully just hangs up the phone. Part of this is her, I'm afraid to believe. But in this episode, she is leaning wholeheartedly into believing. And again, there's the theory where when her and Mulder get further apart, they start to take on one another's behaviors. But then I think this episode, this is what I believe, is a great, it's a great evidence that Scully is assuming her role in the X-Files as the believer, which she was all along. She's recognizing that role. And you see that in season 5. You see it in A Christmas Carol. You see it in All Souls, The Red and the Black. Chinga, like Scully's like, I am accepting that I am a believer, that I believe in this supernatural stuff, as she always was. That's what I think this scene means. She goes back to the dinner table, and then her sister-in-law again starts talking some pretty bad shit. One of the things in this episode that runs throughout it, I've noticed, is the infertility shaming. And holy shit, there's a lot of it in this episode. Tara's feeling her baby kick, and she goes into this long monologue about how life is less, like, until you have children. And I'm like, woman, your childless sister-in-law is sitting right there. And of course, Tara does not know that Scully cannot conceive a baby. But it's still a shitty thing to say to a childless woman. Like, if you don't know, like, it's a shitty thing to say anyway, but if you don't know, like, this woman is struggling with infertility, like, when you see a childless woman, you shouldn't say those things because you don't know. Like, she might be childless by choice, or she might be struggling with infertility, or she's like struggling to find a partner to start a family with. Like, you don't know that. So don't say those shitty things, Tara. And oh boy, this episode just doubles down on the infertility shaming, and I fucking hate it. And at this moment, let me take the time to say, as a woman who has struggled with infertility and pregnancy loss and child loss, let me tell you how great it makes me feel that this show uses those very sensitive and triggering subjects as a cute sci-fi subplot. Fuck that. There was a great tweet that said, in regards to this show, this is why childless men should not write these storylines. And yes, I don't think any of the writers at this point, and I could be wrong, I know John Steven had a baby later on in the series. I don't think any of them had children at this point, the writers of this episode. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I know Chris Carter never had kids, and he had no business overseeing these storylines. Okay. So, especially this one. So, the Scully and her mom are washing dishes, and Scully tries to pull the I'm fine on Maggie, and it don't work on Maggie, which I love. Maggie can see right through her kids. She's like, I know something's wrong, baby. And Scully's like, yeah, because of complications from my abduction and my cancer, I can't have children. And boy, I felt that to my soul. That is the reason I cannot have more children. Of course, I have a beautiful 7-year-old daughter, which I'm thankful for every day. But it was because of complications from my cancer treatment. My journey with cancer was not as traumatic or dramatic as Scully's, but that is the reason I cannot conceive. And boy, I felt that to my soul. And again, this is just used as a cute little sci-fi subplot. Fuck this show. Like, if you're gonna bring up those traumatizing, my cat's butt is in my face. If you're going to bring up those subjects, dedicate to it, commit to it, discuss it, get people on the show who have dealt with that to at least be in the writer's room to advise you. This show does none of that. It is, what is the Sex Files podcast says, it takes a boulder and throws it like a pebble. That's exactly what the show does for those subjects. But hey, at least we have amazing woman actors to convey this feeling. And Sheila Larkin, holy shit, give her all the Emmys. She immediately goes to her daughter and is just, and Scully's like, I never knew how much I wanted this until I couldn't have it. I guess make of that whatever you want. I mean, women deal with infertility and child loss and pregnancy loss and miscarriage every day. And everyone deals with it differently. I've experienced all of those. So, one thing I like about Maggie Scully, I always say she's my favorite TV mom, that she is, and I think this is Sheila Larkin, like, portraying her. Sheila Larkin, damn, I hope she's at X Fest in Minneapolis. Shout out to X Fest in Minneapolis next September 2023. I'll be there, as Michael Jackson would say. She is just killing it in this episode and every episode she's in. One thing I love about Maggie Scully is she's not this perfect matriarch figure as you get usually when media portrays. I'd say most times media portrays mother figures. They are void of a personality. And I like how Maggie's complicated and flawed. And you'll see that later on in the episode when she has these very flawed behaviors. And I think that Sheila, like, bringing that out of this character. Sheila Larkin, goddamn, I want to meet her. She's awesome. So then Scully has more prophetic dreams. She's a baby. She's at a funeral. And she's not a baby. She's like 7 or so. And she's at a funeral, and it's the woman, Roberta Sim, drowning in the bathtub. Holy shit. And she has another really cute dream. We'll get to that in a minute. Where she's opening presents with her sister Melissa. You know what? We'll go ahead and talk about this. First of all, the child actress who plays baby Melissa looks, that's little Melissa. The child actors in this episode are A++. And I'll say it all the time. Even the child actors are acting circles around David Duchovny. I know he's like in this episode for 1 minute, but like, God, like in every episode, it's that way. They're opening presents, and then you see baby Dana, or 12-year-old Dana Scully. She's got braces. She's got the curly hair. She is adorable. Again, yeah, that's 12-year-old Scully. Like, that's it. She's got this record. She says, "This has got to be Hotel California," and I'm like, oh my God, she's so precious. So Zoe Anderson, Gillian Anderson's baby sister, played baby Scully, and I love that. That's so good. People do that a lot in media. They use people's younger siblings to play them, and that's pretty cool. Maggie comes and finds her girls shaking presents. It's pretty cute, and they open these 2 packages which are identical, and it's the cross necklaces that Scully wears, like, even to this day. It's pretty cute. Like, Melissa got it. She's like, "Thanks, Mom." She wears it for, like, Christmas just to make her mom happy, and then we never see it again. And then Scully's like, "I will wear this in the shower." Like, that's the difference between these siblings, which I love. Give me a whole goddamn series about Melissa and Dana growing up together. Like, that is more interesting than any of the Mulder shit that was in the X-Files. Like, that's what I want to see. Fuck Mulder and his little stupid quest for validation. Like, I want to see the adventures of Missy and Dana. That's what I want. That's what I want. Great miniseries, that. And throw Charlie and Bill in there. We'll talk about Charlie Scully in a minute. He never appears in this episode, which is not surprising. I gotta get some more tea. They open the crosses, and baby Dana puts it on, and then she looks up at her mom and is like, "Whoa, it's future me," which is a lot like a bad trip I had once, or kind of good trip I had once. I met my younger self in my childhood room, and I also met Tom Petty, and we started jamming out to Low by Cracker. All you 90s babies will get that reference. Yeah, it was a pretty awesome trip. Anyway, this is what reminds me of that. Also, if anyone deserves to smoke weed in this series, it's Dana Scully and Walter Skinner. They have to put up with Mulder so much. They deserve to smoke some weed. If I were the FBI, I would just overlook their drug test. I would be like, you know what, fuck it. Yeah, just. So, Scully keeps getting these calls from her dead sister, and she goes back to the house, and she's like snooping around with Hot Detective, which I ship him and Scully till the day I die. And they find all this evidence that Roberta Sim was probably murdered. They do an autopsy on her, and you see the old man who was the pharmacist in Unruhe. Love this guy. And he's like, "Hey, I'm back." He's such a cute old man. I love him so much. And then they figure out that Roberta Sims was drugged, and her murder was staged to look like a suicide. They believe it was her husband, Emily's father, that did this, but I get the feeling that he was framed. He does not act like a guilty man, which is shitty all the way around. And let's talk about Emily, the little girl in this episode. This series, The X-Files, loves creating storylines where children are torn from their families. Their home security is torn apart. And then the episode either brutally kills them off, as in this case with Emily, or they just forget about them. They're like, LOL, guess that happened. Again, the heavy-handedness of this series, talking about these sensitive and triggering subjects like child lice. God, no. Don't speak that into existence. Child loss and adoption. Why are these people writing these storylines? If they're going to approach it in this heavy-handed and callous manner, why are they writing them? And we'll talk about that in a second. So, poor Emily, 3 years old, goes into foster care. You get this beautiful scene of Scully tucking her into the car seat, and this scene always makes me cry. I will take the scenes in this episode between Scully and Emily and Scully and Melissa over any MSR moment. Yeah. Any Mulder and Scully moment can get fucked. I want this. This is what I want. This is where the series shines. So she takes off her cross and puts it around Emily's neck, and she says, I'll see you really soon. And let me tell you something. Come here, X-Files writers. This is just for you. You listen? You made Scully infertile, okay? So she couldn't have kids, right? And then you gave her a daughter. And she was like, oh my God, I have a daughter now. This is fantastic. And then you killed that daughter brutally. You brutally murdered that daughter. What is the point? And then after season 5, you never talk about her again. It's never mentioned. It's never discussed. Scully never brings her up, which is exactly how child loss works. Let me tell you that. I was on Twitter about a year ago, and some twat said, Emily's never mentioned before, mentioned again, so she doesn't matter. And I'm like, bitch, let me tell you something. Don't even bring that up until you have gone through the trauma of child loss. This is why people that do not have any experience with this or love people who have any experience with this, they don't need to be writing these storylines. They need to have nothing to do with them. What is the purpose? Why would you give Scully this beautiful daughter while she's infertile and she wants a child more than anything else, and you just rip it away from her? It's the same thing with William. Scully's infertile. She miraculously conceives. She has this baby. She's so happy. And then you just tear it away from her. Like, it's more cruel than never giving it to her at all. Like, the only purpose for this is to make Scully suffer. And you know what? I'm on my soapbox. Trauma does not equal strong woman. I don't know where people get this trope. It's not true. You can have a strong and powerful and interesting female character without putting her through trauma after trauma and giving her zero joy in life. Or if you give her some joy in life, you give her little moments and you just tear it all away from her just to make her suffer more. Fuck you. That's all I have to say. Fuck you. So anyway, the way this episode should have ended, and the episode after this, which I refuse to watch and I refuse to review because it's shitty, is Scully should have adopted Emily. Okay, let me get into the social worker talk. This social worker comes over and she just makes me angry. She says to Scully, you're single. You've never been married. And there's no way you could adopt a child. Excuse me, bitch. Single women adopt and raise children every goddamn day. Is it easy? No. But is raising a child easy at any rate? No. I know several women who have done this, and they become outstanding adoptive mothers to their kids. Fuck you, woman. And then she's like, you have a career. There's no way you could raise a child. Like, women don't do that every fucking day. This is why men shouldn't write these storylines. It makes me so angry. This is a Christmas special, and it's making me more viscerally angry than any other piece of media I've ever watched. So, this bitch is like, and again, she's like, oh, Emily's a special needs child. Scully's a physician. She's acting like Scully would not sacrifice or adapt or make adjustments to raise her flesh and blood daughter, who this child is. And like, that's what parenting is. Parenting is making sacrifices and adjusting and adapting to raise and love and nurture your child. And this woman's acting like she's a social worker. She works in adoptions. Don't you know that? Anyway, Scully is perfectly suited for parenting a special needs child. And Scully would have given up her career in the FBI in a heartbeat. I believe that. To raise her flesh and blood daughter. I absolutely believe that. Don't believe me? Look at the next scene where she just tearfully explains to this woman, like, I've never opened up emotionally to anyone else outside of my family until this little girl came along. That's very telling. You know who she wouldn't do that for? Mulder. But you know what? She'll do it for this child. I will die on the hill saying Scully would have sacrificed anything to raise Emily if the show had given her a fucking chance. Fuck this show. So anyway, ugh, God. And after she spills her heart out to this woman, the woman's like, LOL, okay, I'll see you later. Fuck you, bitch. So the woman leaves. Bill has another talk with Scully. And like, Bill, you were doing so good in this episode. But no, he has to engage in some good old infertility shaming. He's like, everything you're doing is trying to fill this void where you can't have a child. I'm like, Bill, sweetie, infertile and childless women, why do people assume that everything they do is because, oh, you can't have a baby, this is why you're doing this? I'm like, no, women can have fulfilling and happy and good lives without children. Again, women do this every goddamn day. And also, even if that were not true, why the fuck you want to talk to a childless woman that way? What the fuck is wrong with you, Bill Scully Jr.? You were doing so good, man. You're doing so good. Anyway, Scully falls asleep on the couch, and you get this, one of my favorite scenes in the entire show, better than any MSR moment in the entire series, where Scully has this talk with her sister, and her sister's telling her, like, this is in the past, Scully's about to join the FBI and go to Quantico, and her sister's like, you gotta know that, you know, you're gonna meet some people along the way, and that's what's important. And again, she's referencing, like, you're gonna meet Mulder, probably. It's gonna change your life. And I'm just gonna say for the worse. Sorry, don't ship it, guys. It's a beautiful moment between these two sisters. You just feel that love between them. And if you have siblings, God bless you. But if you have siblings and you have a close bond with him, you know it's like nothing else in the universe. That bond between siblings where it's like, I want to choke you, but I will take a bullet for you first. When you have a close bond with your siblings and a good relationship with your siblings, there's nothing else. There is no romantic relationship. Even the bond between a parent and a child is not quite like the bond between siblings. Like, when you grow up with that person and you take the hard knocks with them, like, there's nothing in the world like it. And I feel that way about my brothers. Like, they drive me up a wall sometimes, but I will be the first to defend them. Like, you don't talk shit about my brothers, okay? Fuck off. And you get that bond between these two, and it's so beautiful. This scene makes me cry every time. No MSR moment makes me cry. This makes me cry. Melissa Scully was too good for this show, all right? She deserved better for this fucking show to kill her off. So then Scully wakes up. I am so sorry. Still getting over this cold. And it's Christmas morning. Hooray! Scully does several autistic things in this episode that I feel down to the bottom of my little autistic soul. The way at the holiday party she sneaks off to do spooky shit while just trying to get out of that social function. That is exactly what my little autistic ass would do. And her just falling asleep in random places around the house. And I love the way her brother, like, wakes her up, like he's used to that. He's like, yeah, it's just Dana falling asleep in random places. I mean, she's been doing this since she could walk, since she could get out of her crib. It's pretty adorable. And she wakes up, and it's Christmas morning. Hooray! Everybody's opening presents, and that's where the episode ends. And then Scully adopts Emily and raises her to adulthood, and Melissa's her spirit guide, and they all live happily ever after. That's great. It's a wonderful episode. See you later. Have a Merry Christmas. Actually, that's not what happens. Scully gets the lab results that say they were believing at the beginning of this episode that Emily was Melissa's daughter because they had such similar DNA. And he's like, LOL, surprise. Nope, she's your daughter. And the look, again, Jillian, give her all the Emmys. The look on her face is just like joy and amazement. And in the next episode, that's all going to be ripped away from her. And a child is going to be brutally killed off by these writers these male writers who have no business writing these storylines. So we'll end on that happy note. Have a happy holiday. Whatever holiday you're celebrating. I know this was a Christmas themed review, but whatever holiday you're celebrating, celebrate it well. I hope you're surrounded by people you love, or if you like to be alone, I hope you're happy by yourself. Just have a great season. Have a great winter solstice. And just get out and enjoy yourself, or stay in and watch a movie and eat some popcorn or drink some cocoa. Just have a great season. Follow me on Twitter. I am at Mulder and Scully's Werewolf Daughter, raccoons_dead on Twitter. I am at Tumblr at Just Awful X-Men Art. I am on DeviantArt if you use DeviantArt at Dead Raccoons. And I'm on Instagram. I'm putting a lot more effort into my Instagram at Dead Raccoons Draws It. And of course, on my YouTube channel. Leave a comment. Tell me what underrated X-Files episode, you want me to review. Have a happy season. Love you guys. Mwah.